here Back to the 80s, we don't just talk about the cool, but we also talk about the stuff that was uncool. And one of those things, of course, today we're going to be talking about bullying in the 80s. I remember we've talked about this subject a couple of times, but not in depth. We've talked about statistics, and we went more on the technical side. But if we can go this time more on the personal side and maybe share with every listener maybe something that we can identify with in relation to bullying. And I know that you've talked to me many times before about some of your experiences, and maybe I think that a lot of our listeners would really need to hear one of those stories.
First of all, bullying is a punk-ass way to prove that you're being dominant. I remember as a kid, I used to get bullied, a skinny kid wearing glasses, you know what I mean? My ears were kind of big, I thought. My sister always said, kind of awkward looking. And getting bullied, it played hell because you get bullied, you get mocked, girls laugh at you. So you lose that gut to where, man, you think you can get the girls. And, you go through a time where you're the joke and the butt of everything. It can do a lot of damage to a young kid. It could break your confidence forever, or you could learn to rise above it. For me as a kid, it went on, continuously. And finally, I went and talked to my dad, my grandpa, my godfather, and, they got me some gloves, started teaching me how to handle myself physically. As a kid, I used to always like to watch comics, so my old man would let me watch a lot of these rank comedians. And he would tell me, I'm letting you watch these things. I want you to see how these guys react on their feet. That way, you don't always have to fight, but you can now intellectually talk a bully down or use your sense of humor to get around it. Now, that was the format that my dad gave me, which I thought is pretty damn good advice.
Right.
I gave similar advice to my children when they were going to school about bullies. I found that with this gift of gab that I had learned, that I can now turn the tables on a bully, that I could stand up to a bully, and if I'm prepared to physically have an altercation, I'm pretty confident that I can get through that fight okay. But here's the kicker. With studying comedians and watching comics and listening to what my father said, I learned how to diffuse a bully in their footsteps by ridiculing them and making them the joke as opposed to myself. You find out that a lot of times the bully is a lot like you, feeling a little bit inadequate, but yet they have this one force and power within themselves that's like their talent to put people in fear. So they utilized it. And once that I found that I could make jokes and heckle a bully down to everyone is now turned the table and laughing at them, that I learned that is my strength. That is another power. So I learned that maybe that individual bullying me is not such a bad person. Maybe they got some shit going down at home that they don't know how to deal with. Maybe they've got an abusive parent. Maybe there's some type of substance abuse or something of that nature.
Sure, because it starts somewhere, right? They don't just start off being bullies. Something happens that triggers that.
Anger is like a plant. There's so many things like a plant. Anger is like a plant. It's going to start taking root. And all the negativity is the water, the nutrients that are building the anger to fortify, to grow the roots, to grow this humongous, strong tree, which is your temper. And it's very hard to knock that tree down once it's been grounded and it's been nutrition has been given to it, so it stands to be a force.
Yeah.
That's what anger is, and that's what bullying kind of creates. So it's just a negative all the way around for the bully and the individuals getting bullied. As we take it into the 80s, bullying was bad when we were growing up in the 80s. You recall, bro, how bad it was.
I do remember. Yeah, there was a lot of kids. Granted, I think I was preyed upon one time, and the interesting thing is that I was pretty good with my words. However, what I had against me is that I looked like the good kid from next door. So I never really got picked on, but I did look like the clean-cut kid next door.
Yeah.
And I kind of hated that image. I hated and I liked the image because it did keep me out of a lot of trouble and I could fake it really, really well. I was a good actor. However,
like a police officer.
Yeah. So one time, and this happened as I was a freshman. This was right before class. We were already in class before that second bell rang. And I remember that this kid started, we used to call capping or bagging, basically where we try to put the other person down. So this kid saw that he was losing, and my friends, everybody in the class was making fun of him. And he was a lot bigger than I was. He was in the wrestling team. He couldn't take it anymore, so he started making jokes about my mom. And to me, I was like, well, that's easy because I got a million jokes about moms. So I started talking to him about the greatness of his mother and how she performed services on, we won't go there. So I said a bad joke about his mom. Then that second bell rang. So I went up to sit down, second seat to the front of the class. In front of me was one of my buddies who was in the football team. And all of a sudden, I see a hand going around my peripheral vision on my left side. And the hand turns over, and it was just so fast, I couldn't move. I froze. But I didn't see that he had a pencil, and he stabbed me right in my arm, and he broke the pencil in my arm.
Wow.
And so I took the pencil out, like in a movie. I just dug it out of my skin, and I lunged towards him. And I'll never forget, so my friends got me, they got him, and the teacher said, what's going on, So I told her what happened, and she says, well, go to the nurse if you need to. Just very simple and plain, just go to the nurse if you need to. And so I went to the nurse's office. Long story short, I had to get a tetanus shot. The kid got suspended, but I wasn't happy with that. So he was a bully in one sense, and then I turned into the vengeful person because I said, I'm not going to feel sorry for him. So I put a lock from my locker between my knuckles. And he basically looked like the exaggerated version of the elephant man on his forehead.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of, that was a bully back, I'd say, in the 80s and the early 70s. I mean, that's what I was always told by the males in my family. You know what I mean? Always play it smart. Live to fight another day. I remember my dad always told me, I don't care if you get your ass kicked. Well, what I do care about is you get back up and you take that time to heal. Then you get right back up and you go knock the shit out of that person that kicked your ass.
Yeah.
And you keep getting back up until you annihilate this problem or this individual.
Yeah.
And that's the way I kind of grew up dealing with the bully.
Take me back to the glory.